We'd call a meeting to order at 6:03. I'd be looking for a motion to go into closed session for discussion and/or action regarding those items of business exempt from open meetings on the general laws of Rhode Island, RIGL 42-46-5, A1, A2, A4, A8, and A9.
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're in executive. Ready? All right, I'll call the meeting to order at 7:01. Please stand for the pledge. Thank you. May I get a vote to seal minutes of executive session?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There were no votes taken in executive session. Recognitions, we have none. So we pursue to public comment on agenda items. Public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes with 2 minutes per person. So if anyone would like to have public comment on agenda items only.
Hello. Darlene Netco, Warwick Teachers Union President, teacher, homeowner, taxpayer, lifelong resident, graduate of Warwick Public Schools, including Tollgate High School. And that's one of the things I want to speak about tonight. You have on the agenda to vote for, paid for by a grant, new microphone equipment for the drama program at Tollgate. If you've ever been to Tollgate High School, then you know that the auditorium is ill-equipped for dramatic performances, including the lack of microphone system. We have to rent microphones every year in order to put on our performance. There is no wing space. It's a terrible auditorium and stage for a dramatic performance. That's why the new high schools are going to be such a boon to the drama program. But although it's a grant, I just want you to know how really needed this equipment is for our program. I am one of the drama club advisors, so I speak from experience. And the other item I want to talk about is also paid for by a grant, and that would be the music equipment. I have had occasion to borrow the Tollgate High School tuba and or sousaphone on occasion, and both are original to the school. I think I learned how to play the sousaphone on one of the ones that is currently in that band room, and that was a long time ago. And although sousaphone and or tuba is not listed on the list of equipment repairs, a number of other instruments are, and we have, remember, 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, 13 elementaries. We need music equipment for our students to get a proper music education. So I'm glad to see that this is on the agenda, and obviously it's a grant, but I still want to talk about how important it is, and obviously hope that you vote for it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Lamoth. I'm a parent of 2 children in the district, and I'm here tonight to speak about agenda item transportation. I'm one of the parents who brought concerns to you in August regarding the new bus depot arrangements. Concerns that the depots were poorly lit, unsafe, unsupervised, along dark sidewalks and dangerous roadways. Despite my concerns, I was told that the depots were safe. I am one of the parents who was at the Buttonwoods WOW bus depot on December 14th, 2022, when a 16-year-old girl was struck by a motor vehicle crossing to one of those safe bus depots. I am one of the parents who helped cover her and tried to comfort her as she lay there, stiff on the ground, unable to move, unable to speak, only able to cry. When the paramedics came, I was one of the parents who saw her face, bruised, bloodied, eyes filled with terror. None of you were there. None of you saw what we saw or can feel what any of us felt. But if someone had listened in August, none of that would have happened. And if you listen now, you can prevent it from happening again. Since the incident, we've been told by the district and the WPD that there will be investigations and reports. But next week marks 2 months, and nothing has changed. Our children continue to walk on dark and dangerous roadways and cross at poorly lit and unmarked intersections, then wait in unsupervised public parking lots for their buses. They come from all directions, from both sides of the street, to get to the depot. There are no flashing lights, there are no crosswalks, no crossing guard. There is nothing. So tonight, again, I implore you to take action. Clearly mark the depots with signs, crosswalks, flashing lights. Assign a crossing guard. Allow the bus to stop on both sides of Buttonwoods Avenue. Just return the stop to its original location. Do something. Do anything. Because until you do, none of our children will be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Jean Pietrantonio. I am a 20-year employee here. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I am also a Pilgrim graduate, 1984, and my 3 children all graduated from Pilgrim High School. I have worked in numerous buildings over the last 20 years with all different levels, all different classrooms, and many, many, many teachers. I am currently at Wyman and Welk. Last week, a colleague of mine that I've worked with for 4 years, this is her 4th year here, she is in an intensive special ed preschool classroom, was presented with a letter from the superintendent stating that she would be recommending a non-renewal of employment. I was absolutely shocked. In my opinion, and there are many others that agree with me, she is one of the best teachers I have ever worked with. And she was recently referred to as a great teacher by someone who I believe was involved in the decision to non-renew employment. I know it's too late because the resignations have been given and accepted, I'm sure, but I'm very upset. I'm upset that, and frankly insulted, that I wasn't asked. I'm probably the closest person that works with her on a day-to-day basis, aside from her TAs, and I believe other people were asked what their opinions were on this decision. I was not asked, and I have been asked in the past. This happened last year, actually, so I was asked in that case as well. This is what I would have said had I been asked. Every year I witness amazing progress in the children in her classroom. Last year I was able to attend her graduation ceremony for the children, and I was so impressed. And I've seen this many times. I've been there, as I said, for a long time, that I actually emailed the principal and the department head so that they would be aware of what a great asset she is to the building. I never would have thought in September that those children, those 7 little children who have the greatest needs, would have been able to actively and happily participate in a graduation ceremony with their parents virtually watching. In addition to being an effective teacher, she's a great team member. We are constantly discussing the needs of the children, assessing what the needs are and how they can best be met. She follows through with my recommendations and carries them out in the classroom. She communicates regularly with the parents and has always been a professional in meetings with parents. With her guidance, all adults working in her classroom are actively engaged with the children. They know what their expectations are, and they know how they can be part of helping the children reach their goals. The reasons given for the non-renewal were based on 2 things that, in my opinion, had nothing to do with an effective teacher. The reason given in this case, as far as I know, were things that could have been worked on over time with guidance and support, things that are part of the job that don't necessarily make it up what the essence of a good teacher is, but are necessary parts of the job. I'm sorry, I lost my place, sorry. For those of you who don't know, when you're hired in Warwick, there is no mentoring program, there's no guidance. So this is something you have to learn as you go along. And she actually asked, this individual teacher, she asked at her interview 4 years ago if there was a mentoring program, and they laughed. So maybe that's something that could be addressed. The letter went on to say, from the superintendent, this letter of non-renewal, that she believes she could find a better fit for the district. This is the statement to me that's very confusing and concerning. This teacher's effectiveness has never been questioned by anyone. The proof is evident in the progress that the children make on a daily basis, monthly basis, yearly basis. So you would assume that Warwick or any district would consider having an effective teacher as the goal. I think that's what evaluations are all about. You want effectiveness. Isn't that what we're looking for? Isn't that the most important piece of this puzzle? It's disturbing to me that Warwick doesn't think that that's the most important thing. It makes me wonder what is. Every day as a therapist, every day therapists and teachers are making decisions based on what is in the best interest of the child. And it's obvious to me that no one involved in this decision was thinking of the best interest of the child. That's the bottom line. So now we are left with another position that needs to be filled, and as far as I know, that it's very difficult to fill these positions. IEPs that will not be able to be followed because there will not be a certified special ed teacher in that classroom with severe to profound certification, and the children will suffer. I would just hope that Warwick could do better as time goes on.
Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else for public comment? Anyone else for public comment? Okay, next. Recommended actions, approval, looking for a motion for approval of minutes of public session on January 10, 2023.
Motion to adopt.
Ms. Backus, that's a second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes of executive session from January 10, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of warrants from February 7th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of transfers, January 10th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, announcements, personnel is presented, discussion, action, retirements, resignations. Ms. Ruggiero.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the school committee. Tonight, I have 2 retirements for you. We have some long-timers here. We have John Paolino. He has a total of 36 years with Warwick and 2 years with the state, so a total of 38 years in his career. He is a Greenwood elementary teacher in grade 4. And Karen Cameron, a math teacher at Pilgrim. She has 30 years with Warwick and 1 year in the state, so that's 31 years total. So we thank them for their service. I personally, both of my kids had them, so I wish them well, and we're going to miss them. So I do need a vote for that.
Motion to approve retirements of,
So moved.
as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Mr. Ruggiero.
The next category that will require a vote are resignations. Camille Machado, Director of Non-Instructional Student Services. Sherry Ann Walsh, School Psychologist. Noelle Wright, Preschool Special Educator. Amanda Aubin, Preschool Special Educator. Melanie Chauvin, Elementary Art Teacher. And Brianna Brigidi, Physical Education and Health Teacher.
Move approval.
Second.
I have one comment. I would just say, Ms. Machado, I'm going to miss you. I think you were one of the, you were a very talented person, and I think the district is going to miss you, but I just wish you well. And I wish everyone else well in their future endeavors too, but I just wanted to specifically single you out because I have worked with you before. All in favor?
Hey,
I'm
ditto.
sorry, Ms. Bax.
Ditto.
Any other comments from the committee?
Mr. Chair,
Superintendent?
I'd also like to thank Camila Machado. She brought a lot of life into our team and hard work and dedication. She spent long, long hours, and it was always about the students. So thank you so much. I wish you all the best, and I'll miss you terribly.
No other comments from the committee, just looking for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And the final category requiring a vote is an unrestricted leave of absence for Robin Leone, teacher assistant at Norwood.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And finally, some courtesy announcements for some new folks we have with us. William Burr, the night custodian at Veterans. Amy Langevin, teacher assistant in the IAES program at Warwick Neck. Angie Cienci, elementary secretary at Robertson. Wendy Weiss, attendance clerk at Tollgate. And Lindsay Miranda, teacher assistant in the AAP program at Winman. Welcome to all.
Welcome to Warwick if you're here. Thank you.
Thank you.
What's next? Donation
Donations.
correspondence. Paper store, Bald Hill Road. Ms. Machado.
Sure. The Warwick Public Schools was the beneficiary of the December 3rd grand opening of the paper store, so we received 10% of the sales from that day. So $4,501.70 will be used to purchase copy paper for each of our schools. A special thanks to Kathy Moneg for passing along the great opportunity for the district.
Thank you very much, Ms. Machado. I know that quite a few people went to that store because 10% of 4,500 is 45,000. 10% of 45,000 is 4,500. So it's good. It was a nice thing they did for Warwick Public Schools. So thank you to Paper Store. Okay, new business. Item M1, discussion update, presentation, transportation. Oh, I'm sorry. Adoption of policies, JFCA student dress code, second reading, Dr. Sison.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, school committee members. We are up for a second read and adoption of student dress code policy JFCA. So I'm recommending your approval and requesting your approval on this.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Now, new business. Discussion update, presentation, transportation data. Ms. Machado, are we coming down there? Okay.
Transportation was asked to present data to support the need to combine buses due to buses without drivers. We want to be very clear that our department is in no way attempting to shame drivers or the company. This is a nationwide shortage that is affecting 88% of school districts nationwide. We are only presenting facts that are supported by evidence of buses without drivers, but also representing drivers that are helping support the combinations as best they can every day. The evidence that will be provided in this presentation was collected from the daily changes that are communicated to my department, transportation, by First Student twice a day. The evidence is also supported by logs provided to me by First Student management. So for this school year, we were contracted for 57 large buses, 34 small buses, and 1 van. Our contract ends June 30th, 2024, and an RFP will be issued winter of 2023 of the next school year. What we actually have this year are 54 large buses. Due to a driver shortage, we have 3 less than we contracted for. We have 33 small buses. Due to the driver shortage, we have 1 less contracted, and we have the 1 van. On this slide here, this chart represents the month of October, which totals 19 service days. On an average, we have 11 buses without a driver, and that is for the AM and PM. So you have to think of if a driver is out in the AM, more than likely they're also out in the PM. So Carla, Ms. McGovern, transportation coordinator, is going to go through an example of our October 28th day, as you can see from this graph, is a day that has, we had a large amount of buses without our drivers. and she's just going to go through the ripple effect of combining buses.
Okay. So this particular bus that I chose had 3 tiers. So it had a high school, middle school, and elementary school. The high school only had 1 depot stop, and the middle school had 2 large depot stops. And the elementary portion had 5 stops. So for the high school, we have a couple of options. Not every bus we use is utilized for the first tier. So we do try to get a driver that doesn't have a high school tier, but sometimes we do have to combine with a bus in the area or someone that has the room. And that is why the depot stops do work, in that it's a lot less stops. And as we go on, it'll be more clear. So the second tier, the 2 middle stops, you have to find an existing bus that serves that school in the area and also has the room. This example increases time to any run that it is added to. Every bus in our fleet is being used at the middle school time due to the number of riders, and this also includes our non-publics. The 5 elementary stops, sometimes they try to find a bus that's available, but it is a volunteer basis, so sometimes drivers do not take it. And we end up finding usually an existing bus from that school who also has the room that can handle it and the area. An example of the effect of combining the addition of the 5 stops was done by a bus that already had 7 stops. So that's a total of 12 stops. And as we know, every time the bus stops, it adds time onto the route. Issues that arise with combinations: late arrivals to school, late start of the next tier, high to middle, middle to elementary, increasing the riders per bus. We do have a 71 capacity. We do not use that for secondary. We do that, we keep them 2 to a seat, so it's about 50. So it can be very uncomfortable if we squeeze any more than 50 students on a secondary bus.
So our process here, when we are faced with a bus with no driver, we have 2 options: either to cancel the bus or combine the bus. We choose to combine the bus. Canceling the bus is not an option for us. How our bus is chosen, Carla went into that, obviously same location, school, seat availability. We do work with First Student to try to choose buses that the additional stops won't affect the next tier, but that's near impossible depending on how many buses are without a driver. So our schools are notified twice daily. By 6:15, 6:30 in the morning, we send out an email about the combinations that are for the AM, and by 1 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, we send notification about the changes in the PM. We've been doing this for about 2 years now, since COVID. And then it's the school's responsibility to send notices out to their particular families and the students that ride that bus. They also notify the students within the school. So what we have done, Carla has decreased the fleet. From the first slide, obviously we have contracted 57. They can only give us 54, so she had to decrease the fleet in order to support their request that they could not find drivers for the remaining buses. Carla has recently introduced vans with the support of Ashley DePasquale in the department to help alleviate any combinations. Vans are very limited, the seating is limited, and we cannot use it for many of our special ed students depending on what accommodations they need. We help promote hiring at First Student as well. They have bonuses. They're trying their hardest to get people into their company. We've also reached out to other companies. And since other companies won't be getting our entire contract, they're not necessarily interested in just providing us with 6 buses that we need, which, we can't blame them as a business. And that's it. We're ready for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Machado. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Galligan.
Ms. Machado, first I just want to say thank you very much for this presentation, along with your service to our school district. Really appreciate it, and getting this data out there for individuals and the public, I think will kind of help inform some people as to the challenges we're facing. So thank you very much for that, and Carla, thank you very much for joining the presentation as well. For the record, for the public, I just want everyone to know that I did meet with Ms. Machado and her team about mid to late January. Fairly similar presentation was offered to me, at which time I did ask some questions. Some of the questions couldn't be answered. We ultimately decided on the proposal of having this presentation this evening. I'm going to just follow up with some of those questions that I had from that meeting, as well as maybe ask some of the questions I had already asked, just so that way the general public and mainly my constituents who I represent in District 1 could be kind of aware of what I asked, the challenges we're facing, some of the solutions that are being proposed, and then, I'm not going to speak on behalf of my colleagues in District 2 or 3 or our citywide representatives. So the first question that I have for you is, certainly with you leaving the district now, taking a step back and looking at all of this, what is the solution? What would you suggest the solution be, seeing the nationwide and even local driver shortage, and what can we do to address this, along with our walking distances and some of the safety issues that we're facing?
Sure. So as I stated in our meeting, if I had that answer, I would be working nationwide to help everybody. So I don't have that answer for you. We need more drivers. That's really it. There's nothing that I can do in my seat or my people can do in our seat. We try to accommodate as much as we can with the shortages, obviously with combining, with finding out early enough that they couldn't provide us the 57, so we had to go with the 54. So Carla had to be strategic with, how she routed and what she could cut down or what she could, work on with routes. Obviously, I don't think anyone's interested in increasing the walking distance, but that is something that, districts do when they're dealing with a shortage. Dealing with a shortage means you need less riders. To have less riders means you need to increase the walking distance. And I don't think any of us are interested in doing that.
Have you seen a decrease in ridership? Is that what we're, from year over year?
No, I think it's pretty consistent with our special ed population. The ridership has grown. They're taking advantage of the rides, but I have to say in my 8 years here, I feel like it's stayed pretty consistent.
Okay, great. When we renewed the contract with First Student, was that before or after we increased the walking distance?
I would have to look back and get back to you on that.
I bring a unique perspective on the school committee in that I have children in the school. So I'm a recipient in the morning and in the afternoon of the text messages from our school as to kind of the bus delays. It seems to be a everyday occurrence in the morning and in the afternoon. So, and I've heard from the administration, and then I've heard the other side from the drivers and First Student. So how often has our administration gone out and hopped on the buses to see kind of the challenges, maybe, the delays they're facing? Have we from the NIST department ever gone out and sat on these buses, and how often is that an occurrence?
Sure. So we try to utilize the safety managers at First Student, since we do pay that vendor to do that. We only have 2 people in our office. So we have to either take the phone calls from our community and our families or ride a bus. So we kind of rely on our monitors who are on those buses and the aides from First Student that are on those buses to give us that information. But if you're asking if internal office folks do that, we don't have the time to do that because we're taking the phone calls and dealing with what we're facing every day.
That's understood, and I appreciate you bringing that forth. So back in about late January, I received a text message from the school department. My question would be, if we have an issue with and this works well because you also manage the food services, correct?
Yes.
So if we have an issue with the food within the schools, as a parent, would I contact Aramark or would I come to Warwick Public Schools?
You would contact the food service department at Warwick Public Schools.
Okay, so it would be with Warwick Public Schools admin at Gordon.
Correct.
In late January, I received a text message, and this was, at first I thought it was odd myself, but then a couple other parents brought it up. The text message basically read, there are several drivers out with First Student. If you have any questions, call First Student, and here was the number, and the number was presented. So I hear you that you guys are constrained from a workforce perspective within your department and that you're answering these calls, but then on the other hand, the parents, the individuals who I represent are also being asked to reach out to First Student.
I would ask who sent that text message. So if that text message was sent from a school, unfortunately, they're incorrect. You don't call First Student, you call us. We don't send the text messages, but I always prefer that our families call us rather than First Student, unless you're calling First Student because you left your instrument on the bus or you left your phone.
Yeah.
So I would need to know where you got that text message in order to properly answer that question for you, because it did not come from me or my office.
Understood. Does the transportation department for Warwick Public Schools ever advise the principals as to what communications to issue to the families?
We just send them, I have the list here, I can share with you, and I think actually we did share with you after our meeting the emails that we send daily in their pretty standard template. How the principals notify their schools, it's their house, they know their people, so they would do that themselves. We just give them the information of what's combined, what's delayed, and what's canceled. We do not tell them how to tell their families,
Okay.
just that they need to.
Okay, great. Would you say that a possible solution to our driver shortage issue that we're facing as a district, which is not an anomaly, right? As you mentioned, other districts are facing it. Would you say taking control of the situation and possibly staggering start times a little bit more of the schools would be a good solution? So that way, if you have 50 routes and 25 drivers, driver A can do route 1 and 26 in the morning and then go back and do route 51 and, help me out with the math, 76, 77, I
They're
don't know.
shaking their heads, yes.
So yes, on the times, yes. So Carla and our team work on that pretty early. So we start in February actually asking those questions about how we can change times. So in the past couple of years, we've changed school bell times. Right, so we have one request that we'll be bringing to you for the secondary times that would make a huge difference for us between the high school and middle school level, and that's something that we can bring forward to you. Carla can speak on it a lot more eloquently than I can, I'm sure. But as far as a driver taking this route and then taking that route, it doesn't work that way because the drivers are union. So they take that bus and they do what that bus does, unless they're able to support and with the combinations that they call out. But they can't do bus 1 and then go on bus, 50.
But we have that occurring. We could have a high school bus in the morning, then support, the elementary schools, right? That's
Well, that bus is usually already doing an elementary school.
after the high school.
So it's high school, then they do middle, then they do elementary, and sometimes they'll do a late bus.
Yeah, so
And
so one driver and one bus can support multiple routes if we stagger the time. Stop yelling at me. See, so you guys did have a solution.
No, it's not a solution, it's what we're already doing. Yeah,
but I'm
so-
saying further staggering the start times.
Sure, it's not going to be able to affect every bus, though. It
But
depends on the route. We got to figure, you have to, right, simple logistics, you got to figure out where the people are coming from and where you're taking them.
And it minimizes it, and you guys use a GPS tool, correct, to
Yes.
kind of help you out with your depot stops and
Yep.
everything else. So you'd mentioned that you contract First Student and their safety drivers, or their safety personnel to go on and evaluate the routes, but they're evaluating more so the safety, correct? They're not evaluating overall efficiency of the route. Would
Sure,
that be
so-
a correct statement?
Correct. So we would rely on the drivers, which we give them an opportunity to do that. So we give them the routes about 2 to 3 weeks before the start of school. They do dry runs So we contract with them to do dry runs before school starts. And that is where they either come back to their management and say, hey, this order doesn't make sense, or they go directly to Carla and say, I'd like to change this order, depending on the relationship they have with us. We also have them do that during the entire year. Carla just got an email from someone last week, a driver, asking to change the order. So we're always open to that. Do they all take advantage of it? No. But that's on them.
Have we ever engaged the drivers in a group setting to address kind of some of the complex situations that we're facing with our transportation logistics?
Sure. So the team goes to the kickoff meeting that they have in August, and then again, we're always open to hearing their suggestions with us. They know that they always can reach out to us, and their management has always known. That's been something my predecessor also had with their drivers.
And for the public, the process to request a change in route, it's driver to first student to Warwick Public Schools, and then reverse on
It
the approval of that,
depends.
correct?
So Carla has probably 10 drivers that just call her directly that will discuss the drive with her and discuss the route and want to make the change, and others are more comfortable having it go through their dispatcher or their manager.
Okay. And would it be correct in saying that your ridership is higher in the morning, in the afternoon than it is in the morning?
Correct.
Is that a correct statement?
Correct.
In the afternoon, are we seeing buses that are below 50% capacity with a 70 student occupancy?
Sure, and it depends on where that bus is going, how long the ride is. There's a lot of factors when you look at a bus and you see the seats, right? You have students that are assigned to that seat that may not take it that day because they have T-ball practice, or they are taking it that day so the bus is like at capacity. It all depends on where the bus is coming from and where it's going.
Is your office familiar with the legislation being proposed at the State House to cap walking distances to 2 miles?
Sure, we've heard that for a couple of years.
Okay, great. And so, sticking with that thought process, knowing that with the driver shortage, every school district that doesn't privately, hold their own busing is going to be pulling from the same pool, is it prudent of us to begin those conversations in December of 2023 or start to drive those discussions now to get as much as we can versus the other school districts?
So when you ask that question, are you talking about the vendor side of it or the walking distance side?
Well, the vendor side, because if you reduce the walking distance, there's going to be some impact to your drivership, right?
Yes.
So are we engaging in those conversations earlier than December 2023?
We're always engaging in those conversations. But again, our vendor is a business. They're going to tell you they can do it.
Yeah,
Whether or not they can.
Agree with that.
So we have those conversations. But again, we're doing our best.
Nope, respect that. Are you familiar with the transportation company Durham?
Yes.
One of the other concerns of the residents in District 1 would be that, and I see this as well, parents are trying to finagle their day and around work to going to a bus stop to pick their child up or dropping them off. Durham offers an application which allows the parents to kind of, very similar to what my wife does with Amazon, evaluate how many stops away that van is. So my question here is, Durham is offering that to a school district like Cumberland. Is there anything like that currently being offered to the Warwick Public School system with First Student? Have we evaluated that, and are we moving towards implementing that?
So here's the trouble with having any sort of app for our buses. Due to the combinations, the app wouldn't work because it follows the GPS, right? So if you're on bus 54 and the app on your parent phone is following bus 54, but bus 54 doesn't have a driver, so now you're on bus 7, the app doesn't even matter because it doesn't follow you as the student, it follows the bus.
Yes.
So that's one of the issues that we're having, where we're finding that the GPS on our buses, either the buses are out, they're in the shop, they aren't up to date every day because that information comes from our vendor. So in order to implement that, I would want us to have a solid fleet I would want us to have less combinations every day, because to give that to the community would be like, dangling a carrot in front of their face,
Yeah.
and it wouldn't be appropriate at this time.
Yeah.
Do we want something like that? Sure. I would love, actually, if our students could sign into buses. That technology will be coming soon, because that's like, you follow the student. So you go home with Mr. Testa, your parent knows that you're on his bus, not on yours. That would make more sense to me than relying on the GPS of a bus that could be in the shop, that could be combined. So it's just not appropriate right now.
Okay, a few questions for you regarding the GPS system.
Sure.
The GPS system, for my knowledge and the public's knowledge, takes into account the total number of riders and their location to that stop, correct? You're trying to find an equidistant point from all the riders getting onto that particular bus going to the same destination. Is that a correct statement? Mm-hmm. Okay, yes?
Let Ms. McGovern, this is her,
It doesn't do the kids though, right? It just does the stops.
yes.
So we wouldn't have an accurate number of who is on the bus, or accurate number. I wish we did.
Yeah, nope, I'm just asking on the selection of bus stops right now. Because we heard testimony earlier regarding a bus stop and prior knowledge of other bus stops on main and busy state roads. So the GPS system, is the GPS system taking into account traffic conditions, lighting, appropriate signage, all the like?
No, I think we're talking about two different things, right? So the routing software that we use,
Yep. I'm talking about bus stop selection based on the use of the GPS system, right? The GPS,
no, you're talking about two different things. So routing
Yeah.
is separate than what the GPS is. The GPS on the bus is what, we have something that we use with First Student that's called Zonar. So we can Zonar a bus afterwards and see where it went, how fast it went,
Yeah,
and
no.
what the,
No, let
in
me-
our routing software,
yes.
we have put in, specific roads. But it takes a level of understanding the city, knowing that there is actually crossing assistance at the stops that we put in place. But
No,
the software isn't advanced enough to show you that there's a light there.
Thank you for that. So just taking a step back, my question was basically, what tool are you using to determine your depot stops and your bus stops? And I think I'm hearing from you that tool does not bring in the human element, traffic conditions, lighting, availability, et cetera.
Right, and there isn't a tool that can do that. You still
Yeah.
need the
Yeah,
human
no.
element and someone that's knowledgeable about the city to understand.
And so those bus stops you brought up earlier, First Student, you contract First Student to go and evaluate those?
Yeah, so if a safety issue comes up, either by a driver, by us, or by, someone in the community,
Yep.
they have safety managers that are trained at First Student to go out and evaluate. And so if they evaluate the situation and deem it safe, they will let the driver know and let us know.
And are those documented?
Yes.
And does Warwick Public School System retain a copy of those?
Yes, but they're only by request. So they don't check every one of our stops, because many of our stops have been in existence since my predecessor was here, so 40 plus years.
But we made modifications to a lot of the stops, right?
Yes, we did.
So would you say greater than 75% or
No,
50%?
no, less than that.
A lot of times, like, say there's a stop here and a stop there. I try to be middle of the road. I find the middle and eliminate one of the stops.
Yeah.
And in reference to a question that you asked about a solution, the only solution that I have, based on what we have for drivers and what we have with our combining, is less stops. That's the only solution that I can have with what I've got.
Okay. And so just in preparation for this, promise this will be my last question.
Promise me, don't promise him. I'm the one answering them.
In preparation for the upcoming school year, what would your suggestion be to this body, to this school district? Is it increase the line item, increase the bus amount, or what can this school district and our residents expect. Because I think, you know, I'm fine with a problem so long as we're moving towards a solution. Understanding, yes, there's a driver shortage. We're a unique city, 2 main highways, the airport, 2 malls, Route 2. The list can go on. But we have to finally acknowledge all of those things and everything else out there and say, but here's what we're going to take control of. So what is it that we should expect in the upcoming school year? Or what should we be doing and looking for as we head into budget season?
So I do meeting with our new members. I'm excited that you are willing to give us the buses that we need. Unfortunately, we don't have the drivers for them. Like, where were you 2 years ago, right? Like, when we, wanted a larger fleet. So that's the issue, right? I think you are very willing to give us the funds that we need in order to accommodate the changes that you'd like to see. But our concern is that the driver still would not be there. So it would be irresponsible of us to say, yes, give us more buses when we know our vendor isn't necessarily going to be able to handle that unless there's a boom in, folks that want to be drivers. I think we continue to be innovative in our solutions of adding the vans, right? We received 2 vans and we're looking to hopefully receive more, but again, it's limited, so we can help spots here. We can help Warwick Neck with their, the lateness there or some other school. I know that the increasing of the walking distance is not something that we would entertain, and I don't think we'd be comfortable with that either, right? So it's having these type of conversations, I think, for the community, in the public, being transparent, speaking to our vendor, which I know, our superintendents have plans for that and kind of keeping it accountable. But I wish I had a solution. We wish we had a solution. But we're trying every day with the little things here and there. I just don't know if it's going to make as big of an impact to not have, all of these combinations every day.
Well, thank you very much for your candidness, answering those questions, the presentation, and the service to the district. And Mr. Chairman, I think the next steps would certainly be joining our administration in those conversations with the vendor, and hoping to put their feet to the fire a little bit and help us out and let them know we want a long-term partnership, and then also moving towards one of those exercises like we discussed, getting everybody in the room, including drivers, to the same table, and also seeing what other solutions they may have, because they're seeing it on the front lines. We certainly have a wealth of experience at the table here, and but I think getting sometimes an alternative perspective is good. So with that, I yield.
Mr. Testa?
Thank you, Mr. Galligan. You've set a record that's the longest question I've ever seen. And I've been coming to these meetings for 20 years. Ms. Backus?
Thank you, Mr. Testa. Do you think that it would be a good thing for Warwick Public Schools to get back into the busing business in order to be able to control the routes, the drivers, to be more responsive to the community, and to have that accountability? I think personally that we would have no problem getting drivers.
Well,
I think,
I
and
beg
one
to
of the
differ.
reasons I ran back in 2012 was because I was so upset that we got out of the busing business because the previous administration didn't pay attention to how things needed to be run and how we needed to go through and bring new buses in and, do repairs and determine when the actual life expectancy of the buses were,
well, I have to look at that in a way of, a lot of people lost their jobs. And
I
I'm
know,
not-
it was
and I'm-
awful.
Nope, and I'm not too sure how many people would sign up for that again. I gotta say that. And we're having enough problems as it is with substitutes in all of our areas.
Yep.
I can't imagine trying to do an entire fleet. And
What
my
about a special
predecessor-
ed fleet?
Our predecessor never took a day off. He was in that office
I
always.
know it was. What about special ed buses?
Well, I believe, we would have the same issue with hiring, right? I can say that the level of service I feel that First Student has given to our special ed families is, you know, some of those drivers went over to First Student, some of those aides went over to First Student, and they make that family connection with them, right? They make the phone calls, we call the family to tell them what their stop is, and then the family calls, or the driver calls as well, and they have that connection. So I feel like that continued, which is really nice, because I know that was a big thing. But I feel like if we brought it back into the district, we would be dealing with the same hiring shortages. You know, I have cashiers, we have monitors, we have shortages. So, I mean, we'd have to look at it fiscally, if it would make sense, but I fear that the hiring would still be the same issue.
When we did run our own buses, in total, there was a lot more accountability, and I know what happened, and I know that people lost their jobs, and that was horrible. The whole thing, it was blatant neglect by the administration as to the buses back then, and not by Mr. O'Hare. He had no control over that. But it seems to me that I think bus drivers make a little more than cashiers and stuff like that, and they would have, you know, a job that had benefits and vacations and things like that. So, I don't know, it's just a thought.
And Warwick was good to the bus drivers. We had a good system. I think we would be able to get people to drive our buses. We have a lot of employees that would probably love to drive the buses and be with the kids that might be doing other things now. But I think we could get them if, as part of the WISE union, that could happen. Can I ask a question too?
I wasn't quite done.
All right, I'm sorry, go.
And bus drivers were very good to the community because our bus drivers were our first line to see what was going on with the families. They knew the families, they knew the kids. There weren't a lot of subs and stuff. And there was a lot of care, and those bus drivers that were our bus drivers did a lot for our kids and our families that we don't get through, you know, a contracted company.
They were wonderful.
But I worry, my biggest worry is for the special ed. You know, we have kids that are missing their speech and language, you know, missing therapies, missing all kinds of stuff. Because the buses are a half an hour late or 45 minutes late some days. And it's very concerning because an IEP is a legal document.
Yeah.
They can come after us, and they should. And there needs to be a record kept by the principal or somebody when a bus is late and a child doesn't get the therapy that they're supposed to have, and what have you. And I'm not so sure that that's happening everywhere. In fact, I know it's not happening everywhere. No. Thank you for your time.
So just come down the line, Ms. Hazelwood, you have-
Sure.
and then we'll go to,
I was just
Mr.
going to
O'Hare.
address the lateness as well. And I did also meet with you in the office, and you had explained to me that once a bus driver calls out, it's about a 15-minute notice, and it's a domino effect, because you have to combine these buses. So instead of a bus showing up at a certain time, but now you've got added stops, and that's a late bus. And then that bus, once completing that run, leads to the next. Am I right, or?
Correct.
Okay. That's all.
Ms. Kirby
You
Chapman?
got everything.
Hi. Have we looked more to the adoption of contracting with more than just First Student? Being
Sure.
more aggressive with First Student and saying, you cannot give us what we have, we have to split up the contract, or what are the options with that?
Sure, so we did reach out to other vendors, and they were not interested in the amount that we needed because it wasn't our whole contract.
Because they physically cannot give us the buses, correct? Right? The other contracted people?
Well, they wouldn't reveal whether or not they had the drivers. I think they're all being very careful about that, right? They're businesses, they need to be careful about what they tell potential, new customers, new clients. So what they told us is they weren't really interested in a partial contract that we were requesting.
Have we are at the point where we can now, because the contract with First Student is up this year, right?
No, next year.
Next year.
Yeah,
sorry.
so we'll be going out to bid in the winter, so we'll have that, that cost, so we know what to budget for.
So are we now in a position where we can start bidding? Is there is there any other possible companies that can support us?
So also being the bidding agent for the district, I wouldn't recommend going this early because there may be vendors that aren't willing to give you their numbers for a 2024 start, right? So you have to think where we would be a year and a half in advance. They don't know what their pricing is going to be at that time. So they either are going to gouge us and say, yeah, this is what we're going to be asking for, or they're going to say, we can't give you our numbers at this time because it's way too early.
But wouldn't that put a little bit more pressure on First Student to rise to the occasion?
Well, they know. So I'm very transparent with our vendor. They knew that we reached out to other vendors as well. I don't try to do anything, they knew that they couldn't, they show us every day, right, that they're struggling to fill our contract. So they were aware of it. But I think they're also aware of what their other, the other vendors in their field are dealing with.
So it seems like, but we still have an ability to put some kind of pressure to maybe fix the situation moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is putting pressure, right? This kind of communication to the community. I think having new members that are really passionate about it is going to put pressure on them as well. I just hope that they're honest the whole way through and can really say, yes, we can do it, or no, we're struggling.
Can we also address, like what the mom was concerned about the depots, about the safety, about putting crossing guards, safety cones, something to make our depots safer? Have we addressed that? Is that under your jurisdiction? Yeah.
Sure. So there is a crossing assistance at that road. It is a high school stop, so there would not be a crossing guard at that stop. Crossing guards are from the police department, so they are the ones that assign those folks. We can make suggestions, but like everyone else, they are having a difficult time filling those positions. So they really, so our middle school and our elementary level, some of our streets have a crossing guard, but if, there's someone that needs to go to an elementary run, they're gonna leave that secondary or that middle school. But no high school stop has a crossing guard there.
Is there a way to address that to make the parents feel safer at these depots?
So I'm actually still waiting for the police report as well. My team has not received any information regarding that. So we are waiting for someone to tell us if we need to change anything or if it's going to stay the way it is.
Testa, you just jump in on this?
Or I guess sorry.
Hold on, let Ms. Kirby Chapman finish and then
Okay.
jump in.
Sorry, I was in my thought. So if we, as a community, wanted to put some pressure to make this feel a little bit safer, so right now it's the police department that we're
So
waiting on?
here's the thing. I want to be really, really sensitive to this.
Right, exactly, I know.
It's a stop that's used by RIDE. It's a stop that's used by other bus, non-publics or like the Green School and some of the prep schools around the city. If my superintendents asked that we change that stop, we would change the stop.
But the crossing guard thing,
The crossing guard, I don't believe that the police department would put crossing guards for high school students. When there's a crossing assistance light.
okay.
Ms. Backus?
I wanted to speak to the crossing guard situation. The police department has trouble getting crossing guards because it pays very low. The people who are doing that job are being paid what they were paid 20 years ago when Mayor Laffey I guess you could say, went on an attack of crossing guards and took them out of the union, and they lost a lot of rights, they lost a lot of benefits. But so Warwick doesn't really, I mean, they put something out, but they don't go big on recruiting. And people, a lot of those crossing guards are, you know, much older, and we're losing them every year. And I don't know how that's going to be taken care of, but we have no ability to do anything about crossing guards except to try and put pressure on the mayor. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gallagher.
This question's for Ms. Danbrook, Superintendent Danbrook. Is it possible that we can meet next week and hearing our outgoing director of NIST say that, you know, we could possibly change some of these stops? Can we adjust the Buttonwood stop and the Ann and Hope stop to have the bus pick up on one side of the road, come out and pick up on the other side of the road to prevent children from crossing to begin with, and maybe identify a couple other stops as well that are similar in nature?
Mr. Gallagher, I'm going to interrupt this here. I understand your question. We're not going to have that discussion out here in public. We can do that. You can reach out to the superintendent. I don't, you know...
Exploratory, Jim.
Right, yeah, you're exploratory. It's kind of putting her on the spot a little bit, and she may have to get more information. The superintendent is not necessarily a transportation expert, so we can certainly have that conversation. But you know,
I'd be happy to meet with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's enough for me.
Thank you. You're not going to escape me. So, Ms. Machado and Ms. McGovern, I have a, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, this, you know, we talked a lot about this, and at the end of the day, this is a staffing issue. It's nothing else. It's a staffing issue. Okay? When you contract for 54, and on any given day you could be short 10 or 11, there's a gigantic ripple effect, right? So each bus takes 3 tiers. Just about every bus takes 3 tiers. So if my bus doesn't run because I'm out for whatever reason, we don't control, or we don't judge why people are out. It's not our business. But bus 12 doesn't run today, you're forced to say, okay, how do I spread these students among these whatever other buses I have? By definition, you're going to be late. By definition, okay? So, you know, I get crosswalks. I sat up here 2 years ago, offered to have the school department subsidize an increased rate of pay for crossing guards. No one wants to do the job. It's a 5-hour-a-day job. You know, typically it's retirees. And if the police department, I'm sure, could get more crossing guards, they would. I would, you referenced that study at the beginning, or 88%. I read that study. This is a nationwide problem. You know, people need to know that when we go out to bid, we get one bidder. We get first student. So, you know, the hope is that when we go out to bid again, maybe the environment has changed. Maybe a Durham says, you know what, I'm gonna go all in here, because Durham is a national company. I'm gonna go all in, and I'm gonna bid on Warwick too. But we have to be prepared that we only get a bid from first student again. And then at that point, you know, as in the Untouchables, when Sean Connery said, what are you prepared to do? That's our one bid. That's our one bidder, right? So, you know, as far as bringing buses back in-house, school departments aren't transportation companies, and there's a reason why most of them farmed it out. Because not only do you have the drivers become yours, the capital expense becomes yours. Now, you know, unless you've been living under a rock, when we go out to a budget, right, we struggle enough as it is. If you want to add $500,000 or more in capital expenditures for buses, I'm not sure how that math adds up. So it would be nice if money grew on trees, but it doesn't. So, Ms. McGovern, you kind of spelled out what happens when a driver is out. So, and that trickles through, right? And as a parent, I was a parent, I am a parent, but yeah, it's frustrating, especially if it's a common occurrence, right? So, there's really no big solution to that, right? The solution is the first student has enough drivers to staff every bus. So, but you mentioned the additional vans. So what did the additional vans, which are special ed riders, what do those 2 new vans allow you to do?
So, a couple of the buses had to do 4 tiers because I didn't have enough buses. And they were late, all of them were late every day to Warwick Neck. So by using, the vans, I'm trying, I think they started today. Today? Tomorrow, they start tomorrow. Hopefully you get all those students there on time. They can have their breakfast, you know, I mean, never mind breakfast, they were a half an hour late every day, and we can't have that. I've also lightened up another Norwood. Buses were late picking up Norwood students. So I took some off of a bus, put them on a van, and actually the driver conversed with me, saying that as much as she loved the money, she needed to be at Norwood earlier. So I got her there before bell time now. So, and then I had a couple other kiddos added that I just didn't have room on the buses to get the kiddo there on time, so I used it for that. So I do bits and pieces where I can, and I'm trying to eliminate, because I won't put the babies on the van. I just don't think that's a great idea. But what I've tried to do is at least get the buses there in the afternoon on time, so by taking a few stops off other buses. And the bus that I'm short, I've dispersed 2 other runs in the vans, and I only have that one whelp. From what I understand, they have a trainer that's been doing it every day, so hopefully that's been getting there on time.
Right. And the implementation of vans is if you go out of state, they're all over the place, you see them. But you don't need a CDL license to drive a van, as opposed to a special ed bus, you need a CDL. So I get why you would do that, because it widens your pool of potential drivers. So, but my point, and I think you answered it clearly, is that the addition of the 2 vans gives you a little bit more flexibility to help the end result being that you get more kids on time, right?
Yes.
And I think that also shows that for a student who's willing to work with you, to say, look, once we get vans, we'll give them to you.
Yes.
Because they recognize the problem, right?
Yes.
So, again, when they're the only game in town, because we're a public bidding process, and as we should be, you have to be prepared that, it might be Groundhog Day again. And unless the supply and demand of drivers changes in the next year and a half, nobody can predict that, so nobody's going to know. I'm not confident, because you can make more driving for Amazon or FedEx or UPS. And it's more steady work, it's more work, as opposed to driving the school bus. So, and one last question. We did extend the walking distances. Do you know how many students are actually walking the distances? Actually walking the maximum distances?
I have one high school student that came up with that walking distance. I never heard from the student. They didn't complain. He's probably getting a ride. And most bus riders, even in high school, they're walking less than the elementary walking distance to a stop.
Okay. Thank you. I don't have anything else. Thank you very much, Mr. Shadow and Mr. McGovern, for the presentation. It was important, because I think the public needs to know exactly what's behind the problem. So, great. Thank you. Okay, next. Bear with me one second. Okay, next item, discussion. Yeah, subcommittee appointments. Subcommittees, the appointments come at the discretion of the chair. So I'm just announcing who the school committee appointments to the various subcommittees we have are, because we didn't do it at the last meeting. So policy subcommittee is Ms. Backus and Ms. Kirby Chapman. Health and wellness is Ms. Hazelwood and Ms. Kirby Chapman. Fiscal is Ms. Backus and Mr. Galligan. Achievement is Ms. Backus and me. Special ed advisory, I'm on the special ed advisory. Building committee is me. Nothing else changes about whoever attends these meetings. You feel free to keep attending them if you want. It was just a public announcement. Okay. Next, item 3, discussion update FY 2023 monthly financial report and year-end review. Mr. McGrath.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the school committee. Before you'll find my monthly fiscal report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for Mr. McGrath? Mr. McGrath, I would just like to note that the lunch debt is now $69,683. So a bit of a cottage industry, not paying for lunch when you can afford to pay for lunch.
Correct. We're seeing it continue to grow, and we've other districts have reached out. They're experiencing the same problem, so it's once again not just a Warwick
Yeah,
problem.
and to be clear, we saw a Cranston School Committee member, and they're at like $100,000 as through December. So, I mean, everything's relative, but it is a problem, and I just can't wrap my head around it. So, any other questions for Mr. McGrath? Okay. The next item, discussion, action, recommendations for non-renewals of professional staff. Ms. Ruggieri.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the school committee. We seek your approval for the recommendation for the non-renewal of the professional staff member as discussed in executive session.
Just moving for approval?
Motion to adopt.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor-
Discussion?
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Hazelwood.
We were going to explain some of the reasons. Is that the next one? Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item 5, discussion action, administrator middle management contract terms. Ms. Danbrook.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the school committee, this is the time of the year that we ensure that key members of my team and of the district are appointed and their contracts are renewed. It is countless hours of their work and dedication that this district ensures the best support and opportunities for students, faculty, staff, and the community. Without them, we would not be able to do this. I am so proud of all of you on my team that I work with, and we wouldn't have the accomplishments that we have today without your hard work. So thank you all. I'm providing a courtesy announcement tonight to announce the contracts going forward, and I will announce the people and their positions. So we have Kim Ruggieri, Director of Human Resources, Tim McGrath, Director of Finance, Kevin Oliver, Director of Facilities and Operations, Stephen Gothberg, Director of Capital and Construction Projects, Jennifer Barber, Co-Director Special Ed, Sabrina Antonelli, Principal at Norwood School, Kim Cabana, Principal at Holloman School, Charlie McElroy, Principal at Sherman School, Daniel Sylvester, Principal at Park School, Adam Haywood, Principal at Windman School, Pam Bernardi, Principal at Pilgrim, Assistant Principal, Marilyn Feeney, Assistant Principal at Windman, Todd Grimes, Assistant Principal at Tollgate, Sherry Guerrera, Assistant Principal at Pilgrim, Brad Martin, Assistant Principal at Tollgate, and Albert Speaks, Assistant Principal at Windman. For coordinators in middle management, we have Michael Gilbert, who's our Attendancy and Truancy Officer, Carla McGovern, Transportation Coordinator, Jen Evans, Senior Manager, Jennifer French, Department Coordinator for the Construction and Capital Projects Bond, Joe Napolillo, Coordinator of Information Systems, and Margaret Fitzsimmons, Human Resource Office Manager. So those are the appointments and the contracts that I'm putting forward before you tonight.
And then Aubrey, can you please explain why we don't get to vote on these contracts?
Sure. So just an explanation as to why this is not voted on by the school committee. A few years ago, there was a change in Rhode Island general law where appointments were designated to the superintendent as opposed to the school committee who had voted on those appointments in the past. Contract renewal is still the responsibility of the school committee. However, the school committee has passed a policy. It's policy GCD, in which it states the school committee shall establish model contracts with set benefit packages to be utilized absent unique circumstances. There were model contracts passed by the school committee for all administrators, and so therefore, once an administrator is appointed by the superintendent, that model contract goes along automatically with that renewal, so there's no need for an additional vote by the school committee.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Galligan.
Thank you, Aubrey. I would like to direct to the policy subcommittee that we modify that language within policy GCD, employee hiring, to correct the language that was adopted by the prior school committee, and also that we move to obsolete policy CD, management team, so I don't bother Aubrey all afternoon again.
And that's fine. The policy sub can take that up at their next meeting. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next, item 6, discussion action, contract award, Driscoll Elevator, Wyman, Mr. Oliver.
Good evening. I'm requesting your approval on this contract. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I just want to make you aware that this was an emergency repair. We did have approval from the school committee to move forward with the repair. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions for Mr. Oliver from the committee? Ms. Backus?
Mr. Oliver, good evening. Does that come under insurance?
No, it does not, ma'am.
Because that roof is relatively new, correct?
Correct? I could not hear you, ma'am.
That roof, wasn't that redone within the past 6 years or so?
This is the elevator repair.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is,
All right.
You just one ahead. I was one behind you, one ahead.
Any other questions from the committee? Okay, hearing none, looking for a motion to approve Driscoll Elevator.
Motion to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, it's you again, Mr. Oliver, R&H Roofing, emergency repair at Vet Annex.
yes, I'm requesting your approval on this contract. This was an emergency repair. The roof was to go back to Ms. Backus' question, I am working with the insurance company to get it covered. I just want to make you aware that that was an original roof. It was never re-roofed when we did the main part of the building. So I don't know if it's going to come in at prorated reimbursement, but we would like to approve this tonight to get our contractor paid out and get reimbursed from the insurance company.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee?
Was that roof repair done due to structural failure, or was it due to some sort of inclement weather?
We had a bad windstorm, and the roof failed and blew off, and we had to have it reattached and re-seamed around the entire edge of the building.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Before I call the vote, Mr. Oliver, I just have to, I want to thank you publicly, you and Ms. Higgins and the custodial and maintenance staffs for the work you did this past weekend with 9 degrees below zero and 40-mile-an-hour winds, and how our buildings came through it unscathed. I just wanted to compliment you on that. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Testa.
All in favor of emergency roof repair?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, discussion action, contract award with Houghton Mifflin?
Hooten.
Houghton Mifflin Secondary Classroom Library, Dr. Schultz.
Thank you, everyone. The curriculum department's asking for the purchase of 4 secondary student libraries to help support our students who are currently in reading intervention at the secondary level. We've seen great success with gap closure with the Read 180 program, and System 44 is for the students that really struggle the most, and having books at their level would really help support that. This is a budgeted item purchase, so just asking for approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Any questions from the committee?
Mr. Chair, not a question, but thank you for including the word that it was budgeted.
Yes, I'd like that too.
No other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion action, contract award, Rick's Musical Instruments Purchase and Repairs, Vets Music Program, SBA Art Grant Award, Dr. Cecil.
Yes, this is through that SBA Arts Grant that we received from RIDE. The schools were given different allotments of funds in different categories. The music teachers and the band teachers were given separate funds for their programs, and this is what is being requested at VETS to support the music program. So we're, of course, recommending approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, number 10, discussion action, contract award, Sweetwater Sound, Inc., wireless microphones for theater at Tollgate. Dr. Cecil again.
Yep, and you've already heard from Ms. Netco how important they are for the school. So again, requesting approval all through this grant.
Move approval.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion action, contract award, open purchase order through Coventry Lumber, Mr. Kane.
Mr. Kane.
Yep, good evening. Coventry Lumber is one of our major suppliers for the construction trades program. Asking for an open PO, $15,000. It's funded through state categorical funding at no cost to the district.
Move approval.
Second?
Any questions?
Just
Mr. Gallagher.
one question. With the cost of lumber, are you seeing the cost of lumber coming down, and or is it still sustaining, and are we on budget?
I took a picture not so long ago of a $7,500 order, and it went from probably Mr. Oliver to maybe Mr. Taylor, and was about this high. So it was cedar, but it was $7,000. So the cost is not going down, but I allocate for that through the application process with categorical as well as Perkins. But it's a challenge right now. It's probably up 40 to 50%.
Understandable. So do you see that we're going to have enough funds possibly remaining there for us to make it through the remainder of the year?
Yes, for this year, state category funding, though, from year to year, as we're told, is always, it's up to the legislature in the end. So CTE is in the spotlight at the state level, so I'm hopeful. But I'm seeing it as in other programs having more of an issue, to be honest with you, with the consumable supplies in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion action, contract award, Innovation Spaces Grant. Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the school committee. I'll address items A, B, and C. I'd respectfully ask that we table C this evening. We do not have that in place.
Okay, tabled, that's fine.
Okay. And then moving on.
Right? Just C?
Just C, please.
Just C.
Yes.
Just C, okay, so we're going to do A and B, Apple and Whaley.
Right on, yep.
Well,
So just a short overview. So the state had awarded districts with an Innovation Spaces grant. They called it the Equipment and Technology Fund, and that was back in October. The district was awarded $584,000 to use, not including additional categorical funds for CTC from that program. The district leadership team met and we designed an RFP process for our schools where principals could work with their teams to develop a proposal to bring innovation to their specific schools, really meeting schools where they were and trying to provide the opportunities to those schools. And we received applications and we're happy to support 9 schools in the district that had really awesome ideas for innovation in their schools. What we did then is, so we had an application process, a rubric, and we met as a team to review that. We've spent the last few weeks gathering all the information because even though we're supporting 9 projects, we wanted to be cost effective, budget-wise, and try to use economy of scale to bring together the purchases. So what you see before you in A, Apple, is all of the Apple devices that those different schools requested, and in B, all of the other technology. Reason why C is tabled this evening is because we're still working to get the furniture piece done with WB Mason, and we also will come before you in future meetings to get the rest of those budget items approved. All of this is funded through that grant, so there's no cost to the district. So I'd respectfully request favorable action.
Move approval.
I have a question. Discussion?
We'll get a second first.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Ms. Hazelwood.
Just, there's a lot of cool stuff on this. I was looking at it. Are these earmarked for certain schools, or is this
Yes.
Going to a few different schools.
Well, so that's an excellent question. So yes and yes, right? So we put out the application to all of our schools. And as I mentioned, we're able to support 9 of those proposals. So what you see here is technology that will go to those specific schools that in their proposal have requested, perhaps one school requested a 75-inch Promethean board, another school may have requested no Promethean boards, and another school might have requested a 65-inch. So we're really working with schools and their teachers and their teams to get them the technology that they want, the equipment and the furniture. It definitely was a culture shock in a positive way, where in the past folks might have been used to asking for X and maybe receiving Y. This is asking for X and us meeting those schools with exactly what their team envisions to be innovation at their setting. So to answer your question, this technology will be sprinkled across those schools, but that's what these schools have asked for in their proposals.
So is there still a lot of funds, still a lot of money left in this grant? And how, we have to have it spent by what, June?
June 30th, yes, that's
Yes.
correct. So all of our expenses need to be completed by June 30th. The next big chunk, which, to forecast our next meeting, and that's why we tabled C, is the furniture piece. This grant was focused on technology, equipment, furniture to create those innovative spaces. So the next big chunk that you'll see is the furniture piece. It's just coordinating those 9 locations and the amount of furniture they need. I just want to make sure we take an extra step to get it right and be very cost effective. So still getting the schools what they want and what they need per their plans, but you'll see the next big chunk to fall at the next meeting to be furniture and other
Good.
equipment, manipulative stuff like that.
Good, I'm looking forward to seeing these in the classrooms.
Yeah, the charge was, and the principals and their teams did an excellent job. I do want to recognize that and give a shout out to these schools. Their charge was, in our terms, to make it, quote unquote, catalog worthy. I want to make sure that we're able to take pictures of these spaces and use it for future opportunities and grants to bring more funding into the district. And they've really risen to that challenge. So kudos to the school leadership and their teams.
And thank you, Dr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
It's related to the library spaces at Norwood and at Holloman.
Yes.
I was able to see the photos of Holloman, and it's just unbelievable. They've done a really good job conceptually. And then meeting with the principal at Norwood this past week just got me excited. I want to go back to elementary school, talking about some of the walls and the interchangeable furniture. So nice job to all of you, and really excited for these schools and the kids going through them at this time. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cecil.
Any other comments? Hearing none. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item 13, I guess. Oh, Mr. Kane, you're right there. Okay. We should have put you together. Discussion action, Carbide 3D Perkins funded.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, a while back, you had approved, it was a Green Power electric car kit. Our CAD program was going to be doing a contest. Like many other situations in the country, the vendor could not provide in the end. So we were left with a challenge to not lose the money, for lack of any other way to put it. So it will remain in the same program. This is for Shapico 5 Pro CNC package and Nomad 3. It's a sole source provider through Carbide 3D LLC. It's fully funded through Perkins funding and will help strengthen the CAD program. It's very similar to a 3D printer.
This is awesome. Move approval.
Second.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none. Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, discussion action, curriculum approvals. Dr. Schultz.
Good evening once again, everybody. Today we had a very successful professional development day, our first of the school year, and many of our teachers worked in teams to help either complete or continue the curriculum revision cycles. And so what we have in front of you now are the curriculum approvals for business, science, and social studies. So I'll just list the names so the public can hear them. For business, they've completed computer applications and accounting 1 and 2. For science, they've completed marine science, introduction to genetics, anatomy and physiology, Bio 1 Honors, and forensics 1 and 2. And for social studies, world history, Western civilization, U.S. history, and American civics. It's a very comprehensive list. This has been work that's been happening for 2 years now, and it continues as we make Warwick one of the best school districts in the state. So I just move approval. Sorry, I'm requesting approval on these.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion from the committee?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Gallagher.
These changes, are they for current school year or for upcoming school year?
These are for this current school year. It's curriculum that we've had, but we put it onto a new template so that it meets the accreditation requirements. So it's everything that the teachers already taught, but they work together across the district, which was great to have them come together to put it on one template, and it aligns to our vision of the graduate. So it's something that's been happening, but now it's just in a very nice presentation, and it will be approved. Now that you've approved it, it'll be on the website starting tomorrow, so everyone can see it.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from the committee?
I've been in the classroom and I've seen the curriculum, the changes in the curriculum, and it's very positive. And I especially like the personal finance. The kids are so much more involved with what they do, the stock market game, and they're very competitive, and they're learning how to make money. And they need these things in the real world, so I'm really grateful for it.
Thank you. You know, that's really funny that you say that, Leah, because when I went to visit the business department today when they were working on it, they said that one of the parents came up to them and was so excited because their kid went home and asked about mutual funds. So, you know, it is making a difference, so I appreciate that.
It really is.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Backus?
And just to add to that, right here at Vets, Ms. Gordon she has a school store, and the kids are very involved in the decision-making and pricing and purchasing, and they're constantly adding, and it's a great program.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. So how long has the curriculum been taught, this one?
This,
is already being taught?
So most of the curriculum has been taught, you know, for years, but the last time it was revised was back in 2013. So a lot of it we just needed time to refresh it and to bring new perspectives from the current teaching staff together and have them work together, brainstorm ideas for resources to put on the document and make it the language friendly so that people in the public could read it and understand what's being taught and things like that. So the curriculum itself has been taught. The materials that we've adopted, some of those are new, like for math and for ELA. It's upcoming for science next, and then for social studies. So what you'll see is then within the templates, they'll take information from the new programs and embed them within the template as new resources or materials. But everything will stay mainly the same because it's the same kind of themes and units that have been taught for years.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you already said it. So where did we get the template from?
The template was created by a team within the district. It was with Wendy Amelot, who I took the position from. She helped spearhead to start the process, and so she created the template with district input and with some of our secondary assistant principals, and so they aligned it with the NEASC accreditation needs, specifically with Tollgate and Pilgrim, because they were the first ones to go through the accreditation process, and we were cited for not having a common template. And so one of the first things we did was make this amazing template. So now we're making sure that all the curriculum is all, for every single department, looks the same.
So the principal had a lot of help in it. Is that what you're saying? Sorry.
It was before my time, but I'm assuming that, yes, that Candace and Jerry at the time had a lot of input in creating it simply because it directly impacted Pilgrim and Tollgate.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Schultz.
Sure.
I'm taking particular interest in the social studies because that's my field of interest. And I did read through it. You know, I like the topics. I like how this is laid out. So if a parent wants to go to see what their kid's going to learn in social studies, it's all there. And there's nothing controversial, which is good. So, okay, any other questions? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item, discussion action. Calendar update. Amend the school calendar for May 10th, 2023 from no school to students will have complete assignments online.
Yes, so thank you. That's me again. I believe I'm the last one on the agenda today, so I'll try to make it brief. But we wanted to make just a quick, not improvement, but just a quick change to the calendar to make it clear for parents that there is no school on the professional development days that was today, and then also in March. But in May, we do need to require one of our PD days to be one counted for the students. So we'll be posting asynchronous assignments, which means that they're not going to be live. So it'll be something where the students can log on during the day. They'll have to log on to get attendance put in, and it'll be something simple. It's not going to be, hours and hours and bring back flashbacks from distance learning. Don't worry. But it'll be something just so we can get the students' brains working and still keep them engaged during that day. So we just want to amend it to say that it will be remote learning on that day.
Any questions from the committee?
Thank you for explaining that.
No problem.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Schultz, this is kind of a one-off, right? This.
It's a new pilot, I think, this year from RIDE, where they've given us the 3 professional development days, but they still count as instructional days. And so it's very helpful to us because we do have to, they were kind of gifted because we have to complete the Right to Read Act, which has been mandated from RIDE. So to help with that, because we have over 400 teachers that have to be trained, the only way to really do that is to do it during the school day. And so this way we're able to do both, have excellent training for our teachers, but then also still be able to, work with the students on May 10th. And so we just ask for those 2 days to give us for professional development only, but it is a new model this year for sure.
Yeah, no, understood, because my feelings on distance learning, I just can't stand it, so.
Yes,
okay.
we have to do one, so that's why. Mhm.
Okay, thank you. All right, no other comments from the committee. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up is second public comment. This is public comment on anything. So, again, 30 minutes, 2 minutes per person. Please try to keep it as concise as you can. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Freitas. I am the director for the Warwick Health Equity Zone. I just wanted to say a few things about a lot of conversation on transportation. I definitely do not want your job in that department. I feel for you. But a lot of talk was on lack of jobs that that first student has. And my brain just kind of went and was rolling in different suggestions and different things about what could possibly be done. First off, with the amount of construction going on in the city, we can go to the planning department and everything has to be ADA compliant, and I've been working with the planning department on putting crosswalks and sidewalks and different things in different areas of construction zones, and it's a heck of a lot easier to talk to them when they're doing the construction in different areas to get some of that stuff done. So if you want to, touch base with somebody in the planning department and say, hey, you did construction on Buttonwoods Avenue, you forgot to put the crosswalk back in over near CCAP building in the workout world, that's a huge, thing you can do. I've been in contact with them on that. A couple different things you can add, different signals at lights and stuff like that. Again, it's a heck of a lot easier to do it with the amount of construction going on in the city. Second, as a district, it might not be a bad idea to work with, two programs in Warwick we have 2 large GED programs in the city. One is run by West Bay and one is run by CCAP. I don't think it would be a bad idea to contact them and say, hey, maybe we can work together as a district and with First Student and say, how can we broker some people to just slide in for jobs? Who's looking to work, who's graduating, who wants to have a job, who wants to do this. This is what the pay is. This is what First Student can guarantee. Maybe we can work together as a district on that. I would imagine CCAP would be 100% on board with that. I can only speak for them because I work for them. But West Bay would more than likely be on board as well. So there are 2 top GED programs in the city that we might be able to filter some jobs for some people that are looking for jobs that have just gotten their GEDs, and it might help with solving some of that First Student job shortage. You also can contact the Department of Labor and Training. Anthony Wardsmith is a wonderful person to contact up there who can help you with working with some people to, again, who are looking for work, who are actively engaging with programs in the state to look for work. And then most of you know who I am, so if you want any, if you want to chat and I can set you up with some names and contacts and emails and stuff like that, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email. I'll be here afterwards if you want to grab that as well. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is a old position I was in a long time ago. It's Judy Cobden. I'm a resident of Warwick. I graduated from Pilgrim High School, and I'm a former member of the school committee. With all the talk of transportation, since October of last year, I have been substitute teaching in Cranston. Cranston is a district we can actually compare ourselves to. We need to remember we cannot compare ourselves to such like Cumberland and other districts because they're much smaller than us. We need to look realistically at districts that are our size, which would be Providence and Cranston. Since I've been there, and I was still on the school committee, so I got to do a lot of comparisons, and it became extremely interesting and still is after being on the school committee for 4 years and seeing how they do things compared to how we do things. And, in different categories, we're better or they're better. But when it comes to transportation, we're dealing with the district that does own their school buses. In the time that I've been there, maybe twice I've gotten a message that a bus might be a little bit late, and it's not very late. But we have to remember, in a galaxy far, far away, we once had community schools. Cranston has their 2 high schools, and they have 4 middle schools. We have 2 middle schools, 2 high schools. We also have shut down, in the past, a lot of our community schools. And at one point, many, many years ago, when Ms. Bacchus was on the school committee early in her career, and they were talking about consolidating these schools and closing them, she stated that we would be closing schools and trading them for buses. And she was 150% correct on that. Because what I see in Cranston is the majority of the community little schools that I go to, they have 1 bus at that school. 1 bus. The rest all walk. The rest are picked up or they walk. 1 bus. Some schools, 2 buses. So it is something to look at. But to actually get buses, they're expensive, but so is our transportation. But it's something to remember. The other problem is we also have to remember as a whole that First Student is a multi-million-dollar company, international. We are not responsible for their employees. They owe us a service. They're not providing us the service. We've been going on and beating this whole issue like you would hit a dead horse. We're just beating something that right now isn't going to change. We can say we want to hire more people. We sat with them before when I was on the committee, and we talked about their hiring procedures and what they pay. The pay is a joke. It's an absolute joke. For the training they have to go through, it's a joke. And then from what we also learned was, once these people get their licenses, they get poached by the state to go work for RIPTA. And they take it because the pay's better, and I bet you the benefits are better too when you're getting state benefits. So there's a lot of factors that you have to look at into going to this. It's a bad situation all around, and it's a national problem. It's not in Rhode Island, it's across the board. Just like the food problem we're having with the food balance, that has turned into a national problem. They had it on the nightly news, all these different states that are having all these problems with massive balances being due on the school lunches. So on that note, I just wanted to bring up those few things. And I would like to say good luck to Cam. I was very shocked and sad to hear that Warwick is losing you. I worked with you for 4 years. I've watched you for longer. You've done a lot for this district. I too will not want your job. It's a tough job that you handled very, very eloquently and with much professionalism. And I myself want to thank you and wish you the best of luck in your new endeavors. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tish Eminger. I am a teacher assistant at Welk. I work in AAP, which is a self-contained preschool class. I'm here with some of my coworkers, and we'd just like to express some of our concerns that we have regarding our beloved preschool. We spent a great deal of time last year bringing forth our issues and concerns when we were informed of our program's changes for this school year. We did this with the hopes that our voices would be heard. We did it with our continual commitment to provide best practices and support for our children. We were dismissed. The former special ed director did not take into consideration any of the potential problems and difficulties and the ripple effects this upheaval would bring about. He did not look to the exceptional faculty and staff for input, let alone listen to the myriad of questions and concerns we had. We did our due diligence, we wrote to the school committee, we spoke to whoever would listen to us about what would undoubtedly happen to our program and to our students. Now he is gone, and in his wake, we are left to pick up the pieces of his ultimate decision to dismantle our preschool program. Here we are 6 months into our new school year, and all of our projected concerns have come to fruition. And while we continue to start each day with the same unwavering dedication to our students, we have been inundated daily with unacceptable and untenable situations due to this change. Our absolute priority is the safety, care, and concern of our students who literally and figuratively have no voice, who rely on us to speak for them and to provide the services, support, the nurturing, and care they are guaranteed and deserve. We ask you, our newly elected school committee members, alongside your fellow school committee colleagues, to take the information and concerns we have presented to you and to do what will be in the best interest of our students. We owe them the best possible outcome of their preschool experience. We cannot afford to fail them. Please listen to us, for we are here to speak for our children, 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds with various mixed abilities and exceptional needs, children who need us to continue to advocate for them for their best interest. We have never stopped. We have just been dismissed.
Hello, I'm Christina Carter. I'm an AAP classroom teacher at Welk. I've been teaching for 25 plus years, 10 here in Warwick. Students in the AAP program that I teach are most often nonverbal, in diapers, and require one-to-one assistance to complete even the most basic of tasks, like taking off their coats, opening their lunch boxes, or even sitting in a chair. As you might imagine, engaging in any meaningful activities during the time when staff is reduced to 2 is impossible. Additionally, it is much more difficult for us to keep our students safe during those times because in addition to requiring one-to-one assistance for just about everything, we often have students who are elopement risks, who are climbers, or who might interact physically with other students. We are uncomfortable leaving the room with only 2 adults because it is so unsafe for both students and staff. We quite frequently skipped our lunches and breaks with a 6-hour schedule. On those occasions when we did actually take a lunch break, it was often for a shortened amount of time. Aside from all of these challenges, 6 hours simply proved much too long for most, if not all, of our young students. This year, we once again find ourselves in much the same situation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maria Matera. I have been an employee in the Warwick School Department for 15 years, the past 10 in the preschool. I stood before some of you last year, as my coworker said, expressing our concerns, and I will do it again. Welk is home to the youngest and neediest students in the district. Our center provides its students with their first school experience as we work to set them up for their future success in school and in life. Many of the teachers, teaching assistants, and other providers have been at the school for many years, and Welk is home to some of the most dedicated and hardest working people in the district. Since the beginning of the preschool program in 2000, our students were in school for about 4.5 hours a day. The staff stayed in the classroom all day, taking lunch and breaks after the students had left. This schedule had been in place for some time, and it worked quite well. When a new administrator began at Welk, she implemented a new format in 2018, and our students were at school for a full 6 hours. This schedule required that we provide a nap time, extra recess, and an extra snack time. It also required that we leave the room for lunches and break times, one staff member at a time. Coverage was promised, but was often not provided, leaving the classroom at an extreme risk. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kelly Gervasini. I'm an IASC preschool teacher. I'm continuing on with my coworkers. After 2 years working with this 6-hour program and finding it was not best practice, we were able to collaborate extensively with our former special education director, Jen Connolly. She listened to and agreed with our concerns and decided it was the best interest of our students to once again shorten our day. With the change back to an earlier dismissal time during the 2021 to 2022 school year, we returned to a schedule that allowed the classroom teams to stay in the room together for all of the hours that our students were in school. We were able to provide quality instruction with our STAR program, work on skills, including self-help and potty training, and the children were able to receive their speech, OT, and PT services, all without padding the day with an extra nap time, extra snack, extra recess, or video time. It also eliminated the need for preschool students to miss school on release days twice per month to accommodate our contractual planning time. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tammy Lado, and I've been a teacher assistant with Warwick for the past 15 years. Most of that's been at Welk. I'm going to continue on as well with my coworkers. The cut of the 1 o'clock bus service to Welk and the change to the 6-hour day has made our last special education director without consideration of the needs of the population at hand. It was also made without consultation with the faculty and staff at Welk, who are the most knowledgeable and experienced with what works and what does not work for our students, as many of us have done this program in all of its previous forms. It has been said that this proposal was put forth in part as a measure to save the district money, but students still require busing no matter what time they leave the school for the day, which still comes at a cost. Part-time building aides, teaching assistants, and lunch aides were hired to cover our break times, which also comes at a substantial cost. Thank you.
My name is Roberta Meservi. I'm a teacher assistant in the integrated program, and I will continue. Despite hiring extra staff, we once again find ourselves scrambling for coverage on a daily basis for 2 hours so that staff may take their lunch break. The 4 teaching assistants from the half-day integrated program at Welk are required to provide lunch coverage for our classrooms. This leaves them with no time to clean and set up their classrooms for their afternoon sessions. Additionally, the 2 hours when members of the classroom leave the room on a revolving basis for their lunch presents a challenge. At best, we are unable to accomplish anything more than crowd control. At worst, when the classroom is left with only 2 staff members, it presents an unsafe environment. Again, we find ourselves with 3- and 4-year-olds who are too tired and cranky to do anything productive for the last few hours of the day. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Bertrand. This is my 23rd year in Warwick, most of my time being spent in preschool. I'm very glad that you guys spoke about transportation today, because the sole reason that the programs at our school were changed was not based on best practices or student need, but was based on transportation and finances. I worked at Drumrock prior to having Welk as a preschool, and we have structured our programs in this way for many years. It was best practice. It was with much collaboration. Before we had a special ed school for children in the preschool, we were spread out throughout the city. There was one at Robertson, one at Holden, and our programs have always been this way. We were taking our lunch breaks when the students left. so that we didn't need to have coverage. And I know you might ask, well, how come in kindergarten they don't need coverage? Well, by the time they get to kindergarten, they've been in school for 3 years. We are not asking for anything spectacular. We're asking for our students to be safe. We just want to have our students in school, and it's not 4 hours, it was 5. To have our students in school for 5 hours is like a stepping stone to kindergarten. And what faculty and staff is willing to take their break at 2 o'clock in the afternoon? But we did. And we did that so that our students didn't have an interruption of services. Clearly, this is not working. We have major problems. I was part of the team that went to the administration last year. I met with Mr. Testa and Ms. Cobden and the union. And frankly, with our previous special ed director, we were dismissed. No one cared to understand what we were saying. They were looking at facts on paper and didn't visit. So I'm asking you today if you could please listen to our concerns. We need drastic changes. It's not working. I have an envelope in my classroom for probably over 100 emails of the lack of coverage. They were going to hire all these people to cover our breaks. Well, it didn't happen. And we have data every day of no coverage. So we're either skipping our breaks or walking out of our classroom knowing that it's unsafe. We work hard. We want to do a good job, and we're just asking for somebody to listen and help restructure our program. The 6-hour program simply does not work, and many of the logistical problems that we're having this year, we didn't have in the past when we had our different schedule. Our coverage wasn't a problem. Our IEPs was not a problem. The late buses, we never had those problems. So we're asking for some support. We're asking for you to help in supporting us as we support our students and return to the program the way that it has been for years. This was not a 2-year program. For 23 years, we did it one way. For 2 years, they went to a 4-hour program. We did not ask for 4 hours. It was set that way based on transportation. Our students' needs should not be based on transportation. It was. This change, this includes working with transportation to make this happen, as the program was changed on transportation needs only in finances. So please, can you get together? Can you get us in a room? Can you work with Darlene? Can you get us to a situation that is reasonable, that is equitable? We are tired, we are exhausted, and it's not fair for the kids. We are here for kids. This is not good for kids. So thank you for your consideration.
All right. I had not intended to talk about WELC because I've talked about WELC with administration. I've talked to Jen and Dave, and they are willing to work with us to do what's best for that building. The previous director, the one directly before them, made a lot of mistakes. I spent 2 hours at WELC on Friday listening to the staff. And I am not a preschool teacher. I'm not a special ed teacher. But I learned a lot. I also had already known what goes on there because, just being in the district for the last few years, but there are a couple of different programs that happen there. You heard integrated, you heard IASE, you heard AAP, you heard, different letters and acronyms and things like that. So there are different programs that go on there, and they're based on the needs of the kids. And our teachers also have needs. They need to eat lunch, and they need to have a non-teaching time. And because of the fact that they're with the kids all day, we have this situation at WELC where every other Friday, it's a release day where most of the kids are not in school, so the teachers make up all their lost non-teaching time. Our elementary teachers get non-teaching time when their kids go to what are called the itinerant teachers, the specials, library, health, art, music, phys ed, but our preschool doesn't have those programs. So the teachers don't get any relief. The TAs also need breaks. You heard the TA talking about not having time to clean the room for the second half of the day because she has been watching the first half of the day kids have their lunch, and then there's no time for her to eat lunch or to clean the room for the second half of the day. So something needs to happen. And I know Jen and Dave are willing to work on making that happen, and I've talked to other members of the administration, and it just needs to get straightened out soon, because we do have all of the other, the specialists in the building, the OTs and PTs in speech, and the DPTs that all have concerns about caseloads and things like that. So WELC is a situation that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed soon, so you know what to budget for next year. And if it means hiring more special ed teachers or a .5 speech teacher or whatever it is, then it needs to be done. And while we're talking about hiring more special ed teachers, the elementary special ed teachers need to be increased in number too, based on what I'm hearing from what the previous director did, eliminating special ed at the elementary and causing resource teachers to have to split their time between multiple schools. And in some cases, maybe if you only have a few kids at one, 2 kids at one school and 5 at another, you can do that. But if you have 10 at one and 15 at another, or 14 at one and 9 at another, that makes servicing all of those students very difficult. It makes attending the team meetings that need to be attended difficult, because now you're working with the schedules of 2 schools. Then plus working with all of the other programs that the kids get, the itinerants that I just mentioned, and maybe other services such as reading or math intervention. So scheduling that, just in general is very difficult, and I know our administration is willing to work on it and make it what it needs to be to service the kids properly. All right, so I hadn't intended to mention WELC. What I was just going to say about transportation. I teach at the high school at Tollgate. I've lost count of the number of buses that drop off at Tollgate. Tollgate is located in there are very few walkers anyway, just by virtue of the way Tollgate is set up. However, I follow empty buses. I see empty buses going into that complex every day. And I know a few years ago there was talk about figuring out who would actually be using the bus services and who would maybe voluntarily opt out, and if that would be a way to save on buses. I don't know. I think maybe legally you have to have a seat for every kid who lives in the district, lives in the area, but I know I follow a lot of empty buses to school, so maybe that is something to look at. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Russell Gunlack. I live in District 1, and I'd like to address transportation this evening. I want to ask why buses are running at half capacity, like my predecessor just asked. Why on some buses with a capacity of 7 or an average of 15 students being transported on many runs? Why are the maps and routes being drawn up by the school department with no input from their contracted bus company, which is suffering from staffing challenges faced by most modern industries in the height of and continuing through the pandemic? The efficiency and consistency of getting kids to school should be our first priority. This process needs to be about doing what is financially feasible while also protecting our children, who will grow up to be the leaders of a new generation long after we are gone. We can't have another near miss of a young girl getting hit on a busy intersection trying to get her bus stop. Perplexing are the root causes of our current busing reliability and the walking distances to the stops. Would hiring more crossing guards for busier intersections like Buttonwoods Ave be effective? Crossing guards probably would reduce risk without a doubt. Consider, when I was back in elementary school, myself and my sister both attended, whose daughters both attended Wyman School, were part of our school safety patrol program, which was connected to the local police department. Older students as part of the program were dispatched from class a little early, wearing orange vests, assigned to a street corner to keep an eye out and help get younger kids across the street. I got a sense of accomplishment and self-confidence boost every time and every afternoon after school being on that safety patrol. Let's come up with new solutions we can all live with and we can all abide by. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for listening.
Good evening, Jeremy Langell, Ward 5, kindergartner at Warwick Neck. I just wanted to say, I think it's very interesting hearing the conversation tonight and the presentation. Thank you for that. I appreciate all the information. I know it's true that we have to rely on a vendor, right? And that's a decision that was made by this body, not these folks, but this body. And the point that I'm driving at is this. If we outsource these things, we're not outsourcing the problem. We still have the problem. So, and we're outsourcing our solutions, right? On NPR the other day, they were talking about the loss of jobs in the tech sector, and right away they followed up with, but Taco Bell is looking for new employees. I thought to myself, probably people who've been working in the tech sector making six figures aren't going to transition into jobs in the food and service industry. And so there's a fundamental disconnect, right? We can't keep asking people to do jobs that don't pay well. And we have to stop being surprised when they don't want to do it. So at the end of the day, we really do need to think differently about this, because I don't even frankly think it would matter if you had a second vendor, right? And to your points, right, people don't want to do those jobs, and for good reason. Those are good reasons why they don't want to do those jobs. So at the end of the day, we have to think about how do you create a situation where people want to work and do that work, right? And that means benefits, it means having protections, it means being safe, right? I mean, it means, so I just want to say, I understand the the place you're in, right? And that was a decision not made by members here, right? But that was a decision that was made by other folks. And I think it's unrealistic to expect that people are going to just do jobs that nobody wants to do, right? Because you can't survive, right? You can't. I've reduced, right? We're running the heat at 55, 60 degrees in my house. My heat bill is still higher, even though I use less therms, right? Like that's the reality of the world, right? That's where we're at. So, and if you're looking at a job that is only 5 hours of work or 6 hours of work, and it's a salary from 20 years ago, I'm going to move along. I'm not going to do that, right? So let's just be realistic about that. I also wanted to say thank you for I did appreciate the curriculum updates on the social studies and the biology. I read through those as well. So thank you for that. I was happy to see that, excited for my children when they get to high school to do that. And I think it's okay if it's a little bit messy sometimes too, because it's history. So thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay. Future meetings, Achievement Subcommittee meeting is March 21st, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Policy Subcommittee meeting, February 9, 2023 at 4 p.m. School Building Committee, March 1st, 2023 at 7:30 a.m. And the next monthly school committee meeting is March 14th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in this building.
One more thing,
Yes.
Mr. Tester.
Ms. Hazelwood?
February 16th, there will be a Health and Wellness Committee virtually.
Okay, February 16th, Health and Wellness.
Yes,
I'm excited
at
that
3 p.m.
At 3 p.m. at the Gorton Building.
Excuse me?
Oh, did you say it was virtual?
Virtual.
Okay, thank you. I'm
First
excited
one
for
will
that.
be virtual.
Okay. There being no other business for this committee, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.